Hello, everyone, and welcome. We haven't done an interview for quite a while because it's been busy with loads of other stuff. But today, for the first time ever, I am actually interviewing one of my clients, one of my former clients. We've now finished working together with Clement. But I am so super excited. And I want to introduce you to Clement, who, when did we start working together? I think it was last year, maybe in April, March or something like that. And we worked together maybe for like 8 months,
Yeah.
more or less, something like that. And we have got a very special topic for you today because we are going to be talking about being. And very often when we talk about being, or when I start talking about being, I get perplexed looks a little bit, the same as when we started working with Clement at the beginning. It was a little bit of what is she going on about? So I'm so happy to talk to you about being through a client of mine or through somebody who has kind of really embedded that teaching of being. And when I look at what Clement does today in his life and how he functions, I'm just so proud of him. So thank you so very much, Clement, for being here with me. So happy to have you in here. And I'm going to pass over to you before we start with questions. Do you want to introduce yourself, and do you want to say something to our audience about who you are, where you are, where do you talk, where are you talking to me from?
Sounds good. And thank you so much, Michaela, for the honor. I'm really humbled to be invited to be interviewed. So yeah, my name is Clement, Clement Denaire. You can hear it in my accent and you can hear it in my name. I'm French. Calling right now from Amsterdam, the place I love and the place I live in. Yeah, a bit of a background about myself. I work in hotel technology. Hotels have been around me more or less my whole life. I trained to be a chef originally, and soon enough understood that well, maybe cuisine and then cooking was not a thing for me. However, there were other things that were definitely for me. So stayed around, basically helping hotels and hoteliers do a great job, and this is what I do at the moment. I am engaged to my future husband. We've been together for 12 years. And actually, we met when I just moved to the Netherlands. So that's about 12 years ago now. About to get married next year, and very excited about this interview. I really have to thank you, actually, Michaela, because I think you really changed my life. And I say that with emotion as well, but that's really the case. And more than happy to, extend a bit more on this within this lovely interview.
Lovely. Thank you very much. So, and also we worked together before I became the coach. This is how we got to know each
Yes.
other. We will work together.
Fun fact indeed, yeah. I
Yeah.
don't know if there is any random things anymore. Almost everything is seems to be happening for a reason. But yeah, indeed, that's how we kind of got to know each other.
Yeah.
You were a client or potential client or future client, and I was working on the supplier side, so it was a little bit disarming at first, actually, to change hats, right, and also reveal the real Clement, basically, and I think we did that from the very first chat. So that was what impressed me from the get-go. Yeah.
So let's go and talk a little bit about that beginning of your coaching journey, so that our audience as well understands, particularly if they feel a little bit uncertain about coaching and maybe they are thinking, oh, I would like to try, but I don't quite understand what that actually means. What is the coach actually here for me? How is she or he going to help me? So they are curious, but they are like sitting, on the edge a little bit, on the fence. How did you feel? Because I have to say you were very skeptical. but how did you feel, and what was that kind of an internal skepticism before you jumped and decided to go coaching? And we don't want to spend too much time in here because we really want to go into that being part. Just let us know a little bit about what was going on and why did you eventually decide to go and try coaching?
Well, I think you said it right when saying on the edge, searching for something. I was just curious all of a sudden about expanding and discovering new things, but clearly very skeptical about coaching. I had not bad experiences, but just a bit of a bad prejudgment or prejustice on what this could be. So really going in with a lot of questions and a lot of doubts. But for sure, I felt like something had to change also in my life. I was starting to question a lot of the decisions I was making, a lot of the ways that I was actually spending my time, spending my days, at work, outside of work as well, and kind of looking for not per se purpose, but one of the reasons that I decided to go with this process was that I felt like I needed to find help defining my goals. I was extremely goal oriented, and I wanted to have projects and create this plan that I would have that would be structured, that I would be able to get to. And I felt unhappy that I didn't have this. And I feel like this is really how we kind of started this conversation. That's what I was expecting as well. I didn't get that. I got much better and much more. But it's very interesting to see that this was indeed the context I was in. Very curious, but also very skeptical, and somehow open to at least have first chat to understand what this could do.
Yeah, yeah. So I often talk about high achievers, me being one of them, recovering, right? So we very often we do feel each other, right? As high achievers, we know how we function. We are so driven by our thoughts, and so much by our goals and what we want to achieve. And that's most of the clients what they come to coaching with. When they come to coach with me, is really just, I want to achieve more, which there is nothing wrong with it, nothing at all. There is absolutely nothing wrong with achieving, and not bad, and there is a way how to go and achieve our goals, right? And so very often we have got this kind of A to B linear imagination or expectation of achieving the goals, and then very, very quickly through the coaching that I do, because I do transformational coaching, we start going a little bit deeper and uncovering, first of all, why do you want to achieve what you want to achieve, and who is it actually that wants to achieve that? And we start going a little bit deeper into, and here we go, our own being, and what that actually means in that process of achieving our goals. So when we talk about going deeper into ourselves, and our first sessions as well were quite intense when it comes to looking at your early years and looking at your childhood and talking about the wounds that we all carry, every single one of us. And that can be also for people, particularly high achievers, that we are, okay, A to B situation, give me the external tools, let's go, can be a little bit scary and kind of discouraging. How do you feel now that you've had the experience, how important it is to actually go deeper and look at what is sitting within you, inside you, when it comes to your programs that we create in our childhood, and very often the inner child wounds that we carry without actually knowing about it?
I think let's not undermine it. It's not a little bit scary. It's daunting. It's extremely scary to look into what your inner child is, or at least go deeper and try to understand where does the sense of need to achieving come from. And there was a huge amount of resistance coming from me, and that was physical. That was as soon as we started scratching the surface. But deep inside, I knew this was needed, and I knew that even though it would be painful, it felt like such a relief afterwards, because well, I think it's crucial. I think it's really crucial to actually understand who you are as a person, as a being, where you come from, and you can only do that if you reflect a lot more. And I always remember some of our sessions where I really thought, oh, this was one of the heaviest moments of my life. But I need to go through this, because that way I can continue living my life, and I can continue living my life in the way that I actually enjoy and that resembles me. So for me, it was really going deep, was a necessity, and touching on top subjects that are normally avoided by design, consciously, unconsciously, but just very much of the detour that the mind and the body is taking to avoid these conversations, these topics, while actually asking a lot of attention to it. When bringing a bit of attention to it, then all of a sudden a lot of things resolve by themselves, a lot of things click, it makes sense, and again, it's a heavy process. I'm not saying it was a hard one or a painful one, but it's heavy. Um, but that's because what's on the other side is so beautiful, I feel. It's really um, at least for me, it was very much of an enormous mass that was lifted from my shoulder, and not just my shoulder, but my entire body.
Mm.
And that changed completely the way I interact with people, I interact with myself mostly. I hang out with myself. All of this inner dialogue is actually shifted and a lot more nice to listen to now than it used to be.
Yeah. So what would you say? So in all this, what we're talking about self-awareness to start with, really. And we very often feel, or we think that we are really self-aware and then we know ourselves. And it's very often not the case.
Mm.
So what would you say when you started discovering certain things about yourself? Did you learn, was it a surprise? Like what was coming up when you started kind of looking at what is sitting there? Were you aware of it? Was it a surprise? Just a little bit of how was that for you, that process?
It was a very interesting one. I think it was a mix of both. I don't think I've ever been shocked or really impressed by surprise. I think everything made sense. Um, I, I thought I was very self-aware. At least I gave myself this label. Coming out or after the sessions that we had together, I realized that now I am self-aware, and before that, I just had the feeling of. I would say it's allowing for things to come up. It just brings a different side of self-awareness. It's not per se just that conscious one and that kind of mental self-awareness, but it's also just accepting everything else that comes with it, and recognizing patterns. And I think there's another sometimes pitfall about self-awareness is that you're just going in circles, and you don't really act on it. And I feel like the self-awareness that we've been able to uncover together is so action focused and is so creation focused that there was never a question of ruminating on, oh yeah, I do this because I'm that, and period. It was always forward, future thinking, and that made a big difference as well on the level of action that you can take from this. It's not just knowledge for that, which you could get from, I don't know, therapy, for example. You just hear about something and a reason why you might show certain behaviors and patterns, but it's also about, okay, what do I do with this? What can I include this in my life, and yeah, keep that self-awareness too.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. Coaching is very much focus oriented, right? So for those of us who want to achieve, those high achievers, let's call ourselves conscious achievers now. That's better word. I've changed the messaging around that. But it's still very much about we want to create, we want to achieve, we want to do stuff, we want to move forward. It's just the way how we go about it, which is gentler, and which is really from the place of knowing ourselves, so that we can achieve those goals from the place of ease and authenticity, and knowing ourselves instead of just pushing and forcing ourselves to get somewhere by force, as I say. Okay, so in that kind of uncovering, as we are talking about, once we fleshed things out and you kind of started seeing your way of being before, and then what started coming up, and then we started talking a little bit about, okay, so what is your way of being when you are being in a place of, let's say, scarcity, or in a place of fearfulness, or in a place of not being confident? And we started playing with that word of being. And a being is not it's not a concept, it's not a word. It really is the way how we show up in the world. So can you just tell the audience how you perceive being, and what do we mean by that?
Yeah, I think for me, being is Yeah, it's a concept, right? It's not just indeed that word. It's the way I want to show up as well for the world. And uh that's something that I'm going back to for basically every single decision that I have to make, every single new situations, every single potential scary situations as well. And I think together we came up with or together you made me realize a beautiful concept that I applied to myself on a professional and very much personal level, and that well, for me, being is being a lighthouse. This is really, and again, I said that with emotion every time I mention this, even though I talk about it a lot. People around me know that already. But for me, this is really who I want to be, and that really has changed from what I wanted to achieve and how I wanted to achieve it. It's really how I want to live, and how I want to, be around for people. There's a lot of different ways that I like to bring that lighthouse in place. It's about, uh, inspiration. It's about guiding. It's about being there. It's about being solid, regardless if someone is using you or not. It's about turning on and also sometimes turning off, and turning on and off by design. And it's really about this impression of um, uh, of help, and making sure that that others actually also have their own way, in a very safe and pleasant way. Yeah.
I loved it when we had that session, and I told you this was so bizarre because in 1 week I had 2 clients, you and another gentleman who is in Asia. And both of you, when we were talking about the ways of being and who do you want to be in the world, how you want to show up, both of you came with the word lighthouse. And it was just so powerful, universe. It doesn't happen, as you say, nothing happens for, just like that. There is always a beautiful reason and beautiful connection. So really, from your perspective, your own lighthouse is just showing up from the place of being solid, like a lighthouse, and yet it's not solid like inflexible. It's solid as wanting to guide people and wanting to help people and be there for people and for yourself, but not from the place of force or controlling, but from the place of I'm here if you need me, and I'm your light. Through my conversations, through how I show up in the world, through how I talk to you, through how I share myself with you, through how I go after my goals. It's that solid but beautiful and helpful light for yourself and for other people. And really, when we were doing that work, it was so emotional, and it's just so beautiful.
And
So
I think one thing I want to add to this is that this is an aspiration for me, right? It's both an inspiration and an aspiration.
100%.
Is that again, it helps me be a better human being, and it helps me kind of center my energy very often back to, all right, what can I do in this situation, in this decision, in this busy day's work. Okay, what can I do that really kind of settles with this aspiration of being a lighthouse? And sometimes that also means, again, take days off, because a lighthouse is not always on. It has to be on and off.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, as you say, it's always an aspiration as well, right? Because we do have bad days. We do have the days when we sleep, but that kind of conscious decision about how we want to be in the world is that guidance for us. And we've created, the ways of being that you want to be in the world. And you can always pull that out on a daily basis and see, this is how I want to show up in the world. This is what I want to do or take actions from this place of being. So it's okay if we sleep. It's okay if we are not always, the best lighthouse in the world, because there are sometimes storms going on, also in our lives. But as long as we pull back and we go back and we get back on the track of that being that we want to consciously create, is extremely important. Can you share also a concrete maybe example on how do you today, with all the work that you've done so far, and of course this never ends, this work, right? This is not like, oh, we've done the coaching and Clement and Michaela are sorted. You will be doing that work for the rest of your life. I will be doing that work for the rest of my life, all of us. But today, with what you know and how you embedded the work, how do you use this in concrete examples, let's say at your work, or when you want to create something in, your aspirations, your goals? Just give us a little bit of a more tangible example.
Yeah. Well, I think for that, I also realized that my previous answer to what situation, what context was I in when we started, I also want to give the full context. I just got out of an 8 months burnout that was continued basically from this high achieving in a moment that I couldn't achieve. Because of some very serious, well, simply illness. Let's call it the big C what it is, cancer. Coming out of this, that was really me going to a place that I could not kind of go back onto my normal mode, which was high achieving, being drunk on success all the time. I think this is really how we met. I was kind of on a very kind of path to redemption, but not really knowing how to actually do that, because that success was not there all the time. And the way that I apply this in my everyday life, or maybe a good example of that, is that I really enjoyed going back to my cooking school, my hotel school, that I haven't been to since I graduated about 15 years ago now. And I really enjoyed giving a full lecture in front of 300 students that are not per se very technology minded, because they're all becoming future chefs and receptionists and hotel managers, but really to also open up into what I wish I had when I was studying there. And that's also an example of well, someone that doesn't live in France anymore, for example, that actually doesn't work in a kitchen, and not that there is anything bad about this, but that there is also other paths that are possible, and that is well, getting married to the man of his life in a few months, and this was really something for me that I don't think I could have done in the past, and really from that place of aspiration to well, inspire others as well. This was a really humbling experience and a beautiful one.
That's beautiful. How important would you say, now as I'm listening to you, would you say alignment is between what you think you want to achieve because you think you should, and between what you feel that is right for you? Like, for example, talking about giving a speech or talking to 300 students, which has nothing to do with your job right now, but just we can feel the energy and passion when you talk about it. How important do you think it is to really understand and start tuning in into what is aligned to what we really internally want, not just should achieve because it's just expected on that, or that's just what we do, basically?
Yeah, I think it's super important. I think if you don't do that, then it's never enough. If you don't do that, then it's something is bound to break at some point. I think if you don't do that, then you don't really align, or you don't really listen to what you actually want to do, or actually are maybe made for, right? I think that there is something to be said about this. Then at some point, life is also bringing you well, obstacles in order to make you think and realize that actually, there is potentially another path for you, and it doesn't have to be all that hard. I think you were mentioning force and doing everything with a lot of control. This is really the way I was leading my life, especially professionally, where I was just not even giving chance to chance. There was never a possibility to lose. And that also means that it was never a possibility to be surprised and to actually win. So I think that it's really crucial to align there, because when you do, then yeah, life also brings you amazing things that you can't really expect, and you have no idea about. So I think this is really one, for the ones who listen to this that know me, it's a 360-degree change completely. and I still work on allowing myself to get surprised by life. But that can only happen if you are aligned with this really deep being, basically.
Oh my gosh, so good. And also what I'm hearing in that is that, you know, and again, control for many of us is such a big thing, right? And control, when we want to control all the time, that comes from the place of fear, that comes from the place of some kind of internal insecurity, wound that is not addressed, that is not healed, that is just sitting there and doing its thing. And we're just so scared to let go because we feel like if we do not control everything, you know, things are just going to fall apart. Life is just going to fall apart. And also we will not know what to do. And what I'm hearing from you in here is that actually by letting go and by tuning in and listening to my internal little voice and to that little lighthouse of being that little lighthouse and being trusting and being aligned, there is so much more playfulness and so much more fun. And as you say, like, you know, life doesn't need to be all that serious, actually. But when we try to control and force, it's just so heavy all the time. And we just holding ourselves in a little narrow space. But once we just let go and allow for that space to show up, new opportunities come up through our way of being, of allowing.
Yeah, and I think on that topic, it's really immediate whenever that happens, and it becomes such a surprising journey also, and it's still a journey, right? There is moments that I also catch myself and oh yeah, well, actually it's not just about letting go, but it's also about letting go consciously, observing and allowing for things to happen. I think that's the cool part about it, is that all of a sudden what used to be very hard and very difficult and take a lot of energy can become so easy and simple. And actually achievements, talking about achievements, I've never achieved as much in my life until now. And the level of stress, the feeling of ease and the feeling of I can actually do and be so much more is unparalleled. It's insane. Yet I don't have stress. I don't have, sleepless nights, and things just unravel in a way that also feels so natural. And sometimes they don't, and then it's okay. That means
And then,
that there was
when they don't, that the alignment is not there. There is something is just needs to be, there's an invitation, isn't it? It's not a bad thing when something is not going as easily as we would like to. Again, it is just a feedback. It is an invitation just to stop and see, okay, just something to be looked at with no judgment and just see, instead of controlling that.
A signal that maybe this is a great learning opportunity, and this is another moment of development of another area that I also will never say I know it all and I've achieved it all. Far from that, there's still a lot of things that I need to work on myself, and that's just uncovering or discovering these little moments that hey, maybe we can take a little magnifying glass here and stop for a minute. But also maybe you don't, right? Maybe it's just not meant to be, and that means that there is other ways that will be much nicer that will come along.
Absolutely. So beautiful. So you mentioned the word doing a couple of minutes ago. So let's talk about doing. So right now you're talking about, and what I'm hearing is your way of being a lighthouse, but also it's coming from the place of being playful, being curious, being trusting, being in the place of allowing things to unfold instead of forcing. So it's all so much more expansive energy of your being. So where does doing come from? And is doing important from your perspective?
I think doing is important, but not as a goal. Doing is the result of it. And I don't think that you can separate being and doing. I think you only are also what you do. But one thing that I've really shifted my mind, and again, it's an everyday not battle, but definitely reminders to myself. It's not just about what to achieve, but how do I want to achieve, and who do I want to be when I achieve that, and what do I need to be in order to get there. And I think that playfulness is so important, because it can really be fun, and this doing, these results just come by themselves, from the moment that the mindset, and especially the the heart set is correct. And I think I'm also really saying that from a place of love, then things really start unclick and click in the right way. And a lot of things, a lot of events also happen without kind of planning for them, and the result is a lot of doing. The result is a lot of action and results in themselves. Yeah, I think that being and doing definitely link together, but in that order. I don't think that you can first do and then be. I think you first need to decide and agree on what you want to be, and then the doing just follows naturally.
Yeah, that is so important, right? Because it's important to understand that we are being a certain way all the time. Like there is not a second in our life when we are not being certain way. But unfortunately, most of the time we are being unconsciously. But there is such a power to understanding and realizing that we can choose our own way of being. Like you are now creating your way of being. You're creating being playful. You're creating being adventurous. You're creating being curious consciously, right? You just do not fall. So the way of being is always there. But if we do not know that we can actually create it, if we don't realize it, we are very often just being anxious, being scared, being fearful, being worried about things all the time. And from that kind of place, we can't create anything that is playful and that is beautiful and that is light, because those actions that you say, actions and the doing that we do is actually coming from our being. Said it beautifully, like it's being first and then doing comes from that, whether it's from conscious being or unconscious being, but the actions that we take first starts from who we are being and how we show up in the world. So actions, as you say, are extremely important. Like, you know, taking actions is extremely important. Otherwise, we're not going to achieve what we want to achieve. And we do want to achieve. Again, there is nothing wrong with achieving. So taking actions is important, but it's an inspired action from the place of my being instead of forced action, again, of what I think I should be doing because I just should. So there is a difference between forced action and inspired action because I feel like I'm creating this myself, actually. So as you say, it's being and doing afterwards. That's creating the results, one way or the other. So how often are you, how conscious are you on a daily basis today about what you want to create? So tell us a little bit. I don't want to go into your plans, you know, into the future, but how clear are you what you want to create in your future, your goals, let's call them goals, what you want to achieve, let's say, and how much do you play with your being and doing when it comes to really what you want to create consciously? Whether it comes to whatever, whether it's job, whether it's promotion, whether it's your business, whether it's traveling, whatever it is. But how do you use the way of being and doing today?
It's there every day. I don't have a routine that reminds me of it, but what I realize is that until very recently, I've been playing small, and I've been limiting myself quite a lot in that being. I always thought that, you know, there were certain goals I could achieve, but never really wanted to smash that ceiling. And now I'm just allowing for that to happen. So I'm also very much playing with new dreams that are coming in, and not the sleeping ones, but the ones that, you know, I dream of achieving, a dream of being, a dream of becoming. When in the past I would just, you know, erase them, cancel them, scrap. No, this is probably not me. I will never become that. This ambition is coming back. Basically, it's growing. It's slow because there's many years of reducing that ambition, and now it's coming back. And I'm also just very, again, curious and fascinating by where this will go. It's definitely not a set rule of goals. I have some ideas that are there, and it's about, right now for me, it's about balancing all of that with also where I have what I have become until now, my current situation, and I do see an amazing puzzle that is kind of creating at the moment, which combines a bit of everything. And the cool thing is, I don't know how big is the puzzle, right? But now it's unlimited. There is so many more pieces that are to set there. And yeah, one thing that I trust and that I know is that the end result is going to be freaking beautiful. And one piece at a time. And some of them are very square and very easy to put, and others are just a lot more complicated. And I love puzzles. I'm a nerd like that.
Yeah, you love your puzzle, don't you? It's a beautiful metaphor in there. Yeah. Yeah. And I think, this is you're talking about very important thing, that when you start looking at your being, you start kind of uncovering also the stories that very often limit you in creation of your future goals, of your future dreams, of your future vision. And we very often are kind of limited by our thoughts, by our upbringing, by thinking what we deserve, what we don't deserve, imposter syndrome situation, right? For many of us. And once you start playing and looking at, okay, as you beautifully said it, like, why am I hitting a certain ceiling and I'm not getting through that ceiling? So that I can achieve more, or I can create more, I can have more fun, I can have more money even. We are not talking in here, we are not saying, once again, this is about creating what you desire to create from the place of alignment of what is important to you and what you want. Not just because you think you should, but from the place of what feels right to you. And so we all have got certain ceilings that we keep hitting, the upper limits, right? Because of the stories and the childhood stories that we are carrying with ourselves. And so kind of breaking and releasing those limits, those ceilings, we are opening up possibilities that we never knew that we actually could do. And it's so much fun. It's so much fun. And I think talking about the stories that we carry with ourselves, and we opened the conversation talking about going into the past and looking what is sitting inside us as the programming from our past. At some point, and this is what being and coaching is about, at some point it's time to drop those stories. And it's not always easy, right? Like it's a process, but at some point it's time to drop those stories, because those stories, we're not denying that certain things happened and we acknowledge them. So we're not pretending things didn't happen, but they happened in the past, and we very often keep carrying those memories with us all our life. So can you just tell us a little bit about how important it is to drop the stories and just start moving forward?
I mean, it's everything. So whenever I have an inner voice in myself, there is basically three of them maybe. One of them is adult Clement, and that's me now. One of them is child Clement, and this cute little kid with very blonde hair and very blue eyes. And then there's a third one, and that's your voice, Michaela, that says enough, 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 and that is it's everything.
Are you telling me I am your nightmare, basically? Thanks for that.
Yeah.
You just went so well until now.
Yeah, either that or a nice little guide that also makes me sometimes realize, what the hell am I doing? There's no point to this, and it's important to let it go. It's important to drop that, and it's important to do that so that we can build on top of it. It's not about ignoring it. It's not about lamentating yourself about it either. It's really about using this as a solid foundation, but it's still only a foundation. It doesn't define you. It doesn't define the house that's built on top. It's solid, right? We make sure of that, and I think this is what we've done in a couple of the sessions, especially early on. Is, well, that foundation had a few cracks for me for sure, and that was making the whole building. And it's not just a house; it's a freaking 25-story hotel on top, and the cracks were definitely showing. And going back to that foundation, accepting that it's there, and also moving past it, because otherwise, I mean, you can just come back to it every single minute, and this is your inner thoughts that just limit you in a lot of ways. If you spend energy on going back to this, then that also means that you don't have that energy for the beautiful things that will happen to you.
Yeah. So it's really changing that state of being from being a victim to something that happened to me. And once again, we are not denying that things happen. Very often, very heavy things happen. So we are not denying that. But it's about who are you today, and understanding that I can choose and I create who I'm going to be and what I'm going to take from those past experiences. And it doesn't need to be childhood only. It can be something happened to me yesterday. Somebody told me something, and I could go into the state of being, of blaming and of feeling sorry for myself and being a victim to the situation. And then from that place, I will create a certain outcomes, which are not really great. But I can choose and acknowledge this happened. What am I learning from here? And despite of that, who am I being moving forward? And it's a choice. And once
it's a choice.
It's a choice. And once we understand that, and we see those past experiences, memories, and everything, and we acknowledge them, it can really take a second to change our state of being from one second to another. You don't need to go all the time into, psychoanalyzing ourselves over and over and over. When we see, we acknowledge, the change can happen like that. And that's the empowerment. We choose our state of being ourselves. It's very empowering, isn't it?
It's very empowering, and it's also so disarming for people around you sometimes, because indeed, from 1 minute to, and I'm not saying I'm doing it every time, but it can happen that indeed if I feel like I'm going into a certain state of mind or a certain pattern that's going to be there, I can choose to actually change that. And that's really what I'm being and who I'm being then. And the consequences of this is also amazing, because, well, most probably you switched from a negative to a positive mindset. And a lot of the things that come out of this are really positive consequences. I think it's such an important choice to be made. And when you do it, then it feels freaking good.
Yeah, empowering. Yeah, that's we are taking the power back, right? Instead of our thoughts and our stories running our life, or other people running our life, if they upset us, if they trigger us, we're taking the power back. And I decide how I'm going to be and what actions I'm going to take from that place of being.
Yeah.
So beautiful. I'm so happy. I'm so happy to see you thriving like this, and just really so curious about, I just know you're already creating, and I see, like, in, 10, 20, 30 years, I just want to see where Clement is and what he has created, because I want to be there with you on the journey, because you have got some amazing dreams, and I'm so excited to seeing them being created in a 3D world and in a reality. So keep dreaming, man. Also, when we talk about this, let's just talk about a little bit maybe about, we've done quite a lot of visualizing, and you love visualizing. You are very in your body. You are very connected with your body. So tell people, the audience, maybe a little bit about when you do visualize really your future goal, particularly, why is it so powerful for you personally, and what does it give you as a tool to use?
Well, I was so surprised by how reactive I am, or how
Perceptive
I am of visualization. I just had no idea that things would start kind of indeed coming up when allowing it for it to come up. And I really have this physical sensation that, you know, whenever something is right, I don't feel it in my gut, I feel it in all my chest, and it starts warming up, and it starts being really like the feeling of light, which is not a feeling, I get that, but a feeling of warmth and a feeling of shining. And this has also helped me in certain decisions on really actually going for decision A instead of decision B, because it just feels good, and that gut feeling, you know, is so powerful. And it's really about I think setting up your intentions as well. That visualization that was really, really powerful that we did a few times is about imagining yourself you know, in the future with, and then letting things come up. That's something I've never ever experienced and allowed myself to do. And by doing that, we got to places, I got to places that I freaking love now. That you know, are my images when I close my eyes, and that, you know, comfort me, that remove the stress out of me, and that I know I will get to at some point. And it's also that feeling of trust, of like, if it's coming up at that moment, both on body and mind, then that means probably, not probably, that means it will happen. And that's beautiful. That's really beautiful to get that fully unconscious response.
Yeah, and you, as I'm saying, like, you are super perceptive. Like, you really, during your visualization, I felt like I was in places with you. It was so powerful. And again, it's like when we allow ourselves to really feel things through our body as well, and get the emotions involved, the feelings, not just our thinking mind, right? Because our thinking mind is it's very powerful, but at the same time, it's very limited. So we really want to step into the being of whatever it is. When we talk about creating the future goals, let's say, or future dreams, we really want to step into that being, in that place already, feeling it, being there, and really being, you know, that is the being of joy, and being of already having achieved that goal before it actually happens. So what we're doing, we bring in the future into the present moment. And instead of remembering the past experiences that very often are heavy and, you know, we are actually remembering our future. And for our body, our mind, our body, they don't understand. Like, our body, our mind doesn't understand whether it's, you know, future or present or past. For our mind and the body, it's a present moment. So if you are able to remember your future, and then you create the way of being that future self shows up in the world, then it's so powerful.
And doing that basically allows you to simply fill in the gap.
Yeah.
Right. And that's life. That's what, you know, will be then. It's about defining what will and how will I be in order to get to that place that is the wished outcome. And I find that such a great place of creation again, because it's not like you are already setting these goals and milestone and everything. No, it's really about, okay, what do I need to do, and especially who do I need to be in order to fill in these blanks.
Yeah, loads of stuff we could be talking about. We might do a second series or second video based on this. Is there anything that you would like to say before we wrap up? Anything that you believe that we should say about being, or
well,
being?
What I will add to my experience is that transformative is the real world, the real world. I think this is really the way I experience this, coming from a pretty skeptical, very kind of distanced and actually very resistant person. I got into much more open, much more welcoming, and much more curious, actually, person at the end. And I think that this is really the kind of the journey for me. It was so transformative for this. It's about this shift of perception, the shift of again, allowing a certain way of being, and of being every day. That was mind-blowing. And as transformation probably never ends, that also means that it keeps on happening. And I'm also so excited for, you know, the years to come, and see what else the life has in stock for me and for us. But that's really this this grand shift that has happened. And one thing I will say is that I'm really thankful and really grateful for the great work that we've done together. It was work for sure, but you've been instrumental in this shift. So thank you again.
My pleasure. Thank you for being awesome and open and being an inspiration to me and also to other people. And if anybody would like to get in touch with either Clement, and you would like to talk to him more, I'm sure he would be very open to share his lighthouse with you and maybe give you some pointers. And of course, if you want to get in touch with me, please do. But for now, Clement, thank you so very much for being awesome in this world. We had an opportunity to meet once in person, and it was really lovely. So I hope we are going to have that opportunity again very soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much,
Thank
Michaela.
you so very much.
Thank you.